What's going on, gents and ladies who I know are listening because you saw the title and I know it grabbed your attention. So if you are a lady and you are listening, you may want to pull up a chair and take some notes because you may learn something. This is I.D.B, the intellectual douchebag, coming to you with a new video. And in this video, we're going to talk about how women who've hit the wall will always lose with the 80-20 rule. And in my humble opinion, these post-wall women always lose in two ways when it comes to the 80-20 rule. And we're going to discuss this further in this video. So without further ado, let's jump into the video. So the 80-20 rule. The rule that states whatever the environment, whether it be online dating, speed dating, a bar, a lounge, 80% of women in that environment will only gun for 20% of the men in that same environment. And this is the top 20% of men. Usually men that have a certain height, 6 feet tall and above, a certain physique, muscular, athletic. You should be commanding a certain salary or at a certain point in life where he's successful. And basically, almost every woman in that area is going to be gunning for those same 20% of men. So it kind of sucks for the 80% of men in the same environment. And it's really good for the 20% of men in the environment. And women basically go by this rule for the majority of their lives. In high school, you have all the girls, the majority of the girls wanting all the popular jocks, all the popular guys. As they go through life in their 20s, their 30s, still playing the 80-20 rule. What I've found personally in my age group, and those are the women that are, I'll say, mid-30s, early 40s, they still have that 80-20 mindset where they feel that they only want to deal with 20% of the guys. Now, this is a point where these women have hit the wall. They're aging out. They're gaining weight. And women in this age range, let's say 30s, mid-30s, 40s, some of them have been married and divorced. Some of them have kids. Definitely not the same women that they were when they were young. Not youthful. The body's not tight. Gravity's taking its toll on them. And it shows. But regardless of that, they still feel that they are entitled to the best. And they won't settle for less. Oh, no. They will not settle for less. Okay, guys. Now let's break down and talk about the types of women that fall into this 80% category. They're usually average to subpar to damn. The hell's she doing here? When I'm talking average, I'm talking 6.5 and below. Maybe once in a while you'll get a 7. And the thing that I find very amusing about these women is, let's say that they're able to get the guy that they have their eye on, right? And they begin dating. They feel that that guy who's in the top 20% of men should be the one who should be whining and dining them. He should be paying when they go out to dates. He should be trying to woo her. And what these women don't understand is these guys have options. A lot of times they're probably talking to anywhere from 3 to 6 other women. And women who are quote unquote easier to deal with. Basically women who are going to give them easy access to them draws. See, the underlying factor here about this 80-20 rule that I want to get through to you is that the majority of these women don't understand the game that they're in. They do not understand the game that they put themselves in, gunning for the top 20% of men, when they themselves are mediocre to subpar. And this brings me to the first major way these post-war women lose when it comes to the 80-20 rule. Okay, ladies, let me break it down for you. I mean, it should really already be obvious. You have hurled yourself into some fierce competition because you have 80% of women coming after the man you're hoping to claim. Now, it's been said before by Charlemagne the God of the Breakfast Club, a man is only as faithful as his options. Guys who are part of the 20% category of what all or 8% of women want are going to have multiple women trying to get his attention. Whether it be online, he's going to have multiple women send him messages. If it's a speed dating venue, basically all of the women at that venue, at least 80%, are going to have him named as one of the guys. Sometimes it's the only guy that they have marked down that they're interested in. You have a whole number of different women gunning for this guy. And many of those women are willing to do things that some of you would not on a first date. So even if you are able to sink your hooks into this guy, you have to understand going in, it's only going to be for a temporary moment. Basically, you're just going to end up being pumped and dumped for something better. You know why? Because he can. Because he is top 20% of men that all women wants. It's the rules of the game, ladies. So as you're sitting there wondering why you haven't heard from him in 3 weeks, after you went out, had a magical evening, which ended up back at your apartment or your house for a night of passion, and he hasn't responded to your text in 3 days, that's because he's moved on to something else. Maybe now he's dealing with Jane, who has the big breasts and looks like she would be more fun in bed than you were. Ladies, it's the rule of the game. This is what happens. And you really have no one to blame but yourself if the guy pumped and dumped you for not understanding the competition that you threw yourself in. So in closing, with the first part of this video, the way that these women lose the first major way these women lose to this 80-20 rule is that they end up being pumped and dumped by these guys that fall into the 20% range. And it's kind of funny because these guys end up leaving their DNA on these women's tramp stamps before moving on and never being heard from again. So now let's move on to the second way they lose to this 80-20 rule. And this is probably going to be a brief video. Now these women are not concerned with the second way they lose out until they become concerned with it, because it's something that they're not worried about it, usually until later on in the game. And let me explain. Now, the second way in which these women lose centers around the 80% of the guys that they reject. See, this is what happens, and this is what's been happening. I have a friend who he does speed dating every now and again. Now, he tells me about the horrors of his speed dating experiences. And the thing is, a lot of these women are really subpar. And yeah, they're always gunning for something better. But something that's funny with this scene to him is that there are less and less men showing up. Less and less men are participating when it comes to dating. And that's happening online because men go in knowing that they're most likely going to be rejected. No matter how good they look, how much they work out, women are going to want something better than them. And ironically, a lot of the guys that fall into this 80% range may turn out to be better candidates for long-term relationships. Because, well, let's be honest, they don't have as many options as the guys in the 20% range. They're not going to be approached by as many women. So if they have that one girl who they're attracted to, they hit it off, chances are he's going to be faithful, and chances are he might be a better candidate for a relationship. I'm just saying. But the thing is, you have less and less men participating. And these women who keep getting pumped and dumped by the 20%ers, they're going to get older, more bitter, because they're going to still keep gunning for the 20% range of guys as long as they can. And less men in that 20% range are going to fuck with them. Because they're getting older, they're getting fatter, they're getting less desirable. So now they have no choice but to go back to the men who fall into the 80% range. Men who before were not on their radar. Men who before they were not interested, or they thought that they were creepy looking. But now she has to settle, as they would state it, for the guy in the 80% range. Only now, these guys don't want to be bothered. And can you blame these men for not wanting to be bothered anymore? I mean, it's the way of the world. These women have been ran through. These women have given themselves to, in many cases, the worst type of men that they could. And now that they're old, they're fatter, they're washed up, the vagina has been beaten to death, there's no tread left on the tire. Now they want to come back to the 80% of men that they didn't want to be bothered with when they were younger, when they looked better. And is it a wonder that these guys don't want to be bothered with them? These guys don't want sloppy seconds. But the thing is, sometimes the options open up for these men in their 8% range. because they're older, they have assets, they have homes. They're not living with their mothers, so now you have younger women coming up who are looking at these guys because they're more established. So now there's a shift. And for a man who falls into the 80% range that has something going for him in his life, he may not be 6 foot tall and super muscular, but he has his own home. Maybe he has a motorcycle and a sports car. He's able to go on vacations. While some younger, harder woman with a tight body is going to be interested in that. So now if he has a choice of choosing an old, fat, washed up woman who's been ran through by 60, 70, 80 guys, and a younger, hot woman with a tight body who doesn't have as much of a body count behind her as her older counterpart, what's he going to choose? He's going to go for the younger girl every time. So to conclude this video, the women who play the 80-20 game end up losing because they get pumped and dumped if they should acquire a guy in the 20% range. And then later, they have nothing to fall back because the guys in the 80% range, who they initially turn their noses up at, don't want to be bothered with them. And they end up being alone and bitter, surrounded by a bunch of pissing, shitting cats. And ladies, you only have yourselves to blame for this. Well, this concludes my video. Please feel free to rate and comment. Do you agree with me that women who've hit the wall will always lose to the 80-20 rule? Please feel free to comment. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe. Once again, this is I.D.B, otherwise known as the intellectual douchebag. And I'm out of here, goddammit. I'm out. Till next time.